The Rhodesian Bush War was one of the longest and most demanding counterinsurgency conflicts of the Cold War. Under threat from multiple fronts, the Rhodesian military would develop everything from new tactics to new equipment, all specialised for counterinsurgency warfare in an inhospitable environment. One such iconic weapon was the Lynx, a specially modified Cessna Skymaster equipped with guns, rockets and bombs. Equipped for combat, it would go on to become one of the most important air assets the Rhodesians had available, flying everything from recon and comms relay to close air support and interdiction. An affordable, reliable aircraft that proved devastatingly effective. Affordable, simple and safe, the Reims-Cessna Skymaster first appeared in 1961. The so-called Model 336 was a unique design aimed at civilian markets and built around a push-pull twin-engine configuration. It had a high wing placement, with most of the frame also connecting higher up along the fuselage, giving the pilots a surprisingly good view of his surroundings. What's more, the push-pull engine setup meant it was also quite safe. If one engine failed, asymmetrical pull was minimal and the aircraft could still be flown home safely. Perfect in theory for use on the battlefield. It didn't take long for such an idea to take shape. In 1966, the US Air Force first requested a military-spec version of the Skymaster. The specific model was the 337, an upgraded version first flown the year prior and equipped with retractable landing gear. Working with Cessna, the new aircraft, designated the O2 Skymaster, was first flown in January 1967 and by the end of the year was in combat use. Cessna took the civilian aircraft and stripped out the 6-seat configuration, giving more room for a small crew. In the back, a large rack of military-spec communication equipment was installed, allowing one of the crew to coordinate with various assets at once. Viewing ports or observation windows were cut into the doors, and 2 large cutouts were made above the pilot through the roof, giving great visibility at most angles. Several other smaller mods were also done, including removing the prop hub fairing and reinforcing and plumbing the wings for 4 hardpoints. Although it was heavier and a bit slower, the final product proved to be a promising, cost-effective and user-friendly modification program. The O2A and O2B, painted in distinct white, would go on to become successful Forward Air Control, or FAC, and PSYOP platforms, something many are aware of. What is less known is that the O2, thanks to its hardpoints, was actually combat ready. The 4 underwing hardpoints could be loaded with a variety of weapons, from the SUU-11 minigun pods to rockets and even dispensers carrying flares and other mission stores. In practice, pods usually held phosphorus marking rockets and dispensers carried marker flares, both to help troops and other aircraft. Yet, in pressing circumstances, such as friendlies being encroached upon before help had arrived, crews could roll in and engage the enemy directly. Some stories tell of FACs strafing with phosphorus rockets to scare off enemies or simply passing overhead to divert fire away from troops on the ground. If gun pods were fitted, crews could deliver lethal fire directly, aided by makeshift gun sights drawn with grease pens. In practice, this was a dangerous yet helpful approach, both acting as FAC and the ability to carry defensive weapons if needed. While the US didn't pursue this concept further in the O2, they had validated the idea that a basic Skymaster could be used effectively on the battlefield. In 1973, the French developed the FTB-337G multi-role, a modified version of the latest Super Skymaster. It featured strengthened wings with plumbing and hardpoints, as well as a slightly altered cockpit to accommodate weapons use. In 1975, the Rhodesians decided to procure 18 aircraft in this configuration for No. 4 Squadron. To circumvent the country's weapons restrictions, the French would assemble the aircraft with multi-role internals, but paint them as a civilian delivery. It would also come with a Robinson stall kit, enabling it to operate from dirt runways. Typically, landing and taking off could be performed in less than 200 meters at 60 knots. This was crucial not only for short strips, but also to aid conventional takeoffs in thin, hot air. Once assembled, the aircraft were fitted with large internal fuel tanks in 1975 and covertly ferried to Rhodesia under the guise of civilian aircraft. Upon arrival, the Rhodesians would repaint them in an unmarked, non-reflective camo and begin the second stage to make them combat ready. 4 Squadron would add proper military spec radios and navigation equipment, while magazines and case collectors were placed in the back. This was followed by further wiring to the hardpoint, allowing French Sneb rockets to be fired in barrages and adding compatibility with an assortment of domestically built weapons. These included small napalm canisters called Frantans, an anti-personnel submunition called the Alpha Bomb, which after striking the ground was projected upwards before detonating its fragmentation warhead at head height, and a small 80-kilogram cluster bomb. Referred to as the Mini Golf, it was a small derivative of the 1,000-pound Golf used by Rhodesian bombers, loaded with clusters of steel fragments or rods and detonated by a thin, meter-long detonator, triggered just before it hit the ground. All up, each hardpoint was reportedly rated for around 200 pounds of payload. Finally, the primary weapon mod would be the installation of 2 303 Browning machine guns overhead, belt-fed from the ammo crates in the back seat, carrying 1,200 rounds. Compared to the O2, it lacked the special cutouts for visibility, but it was considerably newer. The decision to use it as a light multi-role platform was smart since potential problems were few. The tail booms were vulnerable to rough handling and combat damage. The rear engine could overheat if left idling on the ground for too long. And being a high-wing design, it left the crew with a large blind spot inside their turn circle if they banked hard. But beyond this, they were dynamic. Not only could they be forward deployed to small airstrips, but they were easy to work on, quick to refuel and rearm, and both slow and agile, making them a great platform to help troops on the ground. Combat use would quickly follow. In 1976, the fleet was modified to include engine exhaust shielding to reduce thermal signature against infrared missile threats, and 3 more aircraft arrived in 1977. Under 4 Squadron, the aircraft would quickly earn the designation of Lynx and begin flying a diverse number of taskings, ranging from FAC to visual reconnaissance to generic close air support and interdiction. As time went on, the list of roles would only increase. Its distinct advantages in persistent close battlefield support made it a preferred choice over larger jets like the Canberra, Vampire and Hawker Hunter. Soon after its introduction, it would find itself working closely with ground forces as an asset in Fireforce assaults, with 4 Squadron being integrated into the team structure. The famous method conventionally included 3 transport choppers, or G-cars, loaded with 4 troops each, or sticks as they were called, who would be inserted into 3 separate blocking areas around an enemy position. A 4th chopper, a gunship or K-car, would serve as a command post. This was followed by a C-47, which would paradrop troops in, encircling the enemy and initiating the blocking action. This was considered a first wave sequence and could be followed by a second wave by helicopter or convoy. While this tactic requires a video in itself, direct air power quickly proved necessary to speed up the process. Each mission preferably had a Lynx on station. A typical mission would identify a target group within a particular Fireforce zone. The mission would then commence if it was deemed a sufficient threat. The K car would be the first on the scene. The commander on board would then note the topography and choose where to direct the transports to land and where the drop zones for the paratroopers would be. Usually, at this point, the K car would work in tandem with a Lynx to locate and strike the enemy. This both inflicted maximum damage, since the enemy would usually be concentrated, and give the transports time to insert troops while the enemy was distracted. In other cases, the Lynx would arrive on station once the fighting had already commenced. Either way, due to its slower speed, the Lynx proved to be very efficient. It was slow enough to easily spot enemies and was extremely accurate, able to provide air support even while friendlies were engaging at very close contact points, while greatly reducing the risk of friendly fire. Of all the roles it filled, this was arguably what it did best. The nature of a Fireforce assault was that the contact line would shift rapidly. For faster jets, like the Hunter or Vampire, this usually meant 2 passes were necessary, one for visual ID and another to strike. In that time, and at close quarters in thick scrub and bush, the line could have shifted enough for friendlies to be in the line of fire. The Lynx, on the other hand, was slow enough to more precisely pinpoint friendlies and hostiles, and could also pull into a low-speed attack run without having to egress and come back around. This meant the crew could keep monitoring the situation and adjust on the fly without breaking visual. Beyond Fireforce, it would see extensive use in other roles. Like the O2, it would fly FAC missions quite efficiently, coordinating multiple assets at once and marking targets. It could also be flown at high altitudes, orbiting as a command post or radio relay station in mountainous environments. It would also fly a variety of reconnaissance roles. In a standard visual recon tasking, it would fly low to identify threats, while later it would be used in armed reconnaissance along the border, where it would be cleared to engage targets of opportunity. Many other mission types followed, ranging from casualty evacuation and night ops to long-range strike missions, including operations into neighbouring countries to cut off insurgents and strike base camps. As we covered in our Rhodesian Bush War video, the Lynx's quick turnaround meant aircraft could remain in rotation, supporting troops all day. If needed, this could continue into the night, with crews navigating by compass and stopwatch, then striking targets they could light up with flares. By the end of the Bush War, Rhodesian pilots had pushed the platform to its limits, yet proved remarkably reliable throughout the conflict. Over the course of 4 years, the Lynx had become a core asset for Fireforce troops, a familiar sight for troops on the ground in contact, a deadly barrier against insurgents crossing Rhodesia's borders, and a small but helpful asset aiding larger Air Force jets on more ambitious Air Force strike missions. Like so much from that era, it was partly the result of ingenuity under pressure, a robust platform reminiscent of the A-1 Sky Raider in the Vietnam War, and one that is still remembered today as a symbol of the Rhodesian Bush War.
Thanks for watching. Our videos are researched, written and produced by a small team of filmmakers dedicated to bringing you accurate military aviation history from around the world. Please consider supporting us by joining our merch and members site for early access, bonus content and merch discounts. Or become a YouTube channel member for early access, or simply hit subscribe. Your support means everything.